If you could live green, would you? I'm Nick Federoff, host of Things Green, where we introduce nuggets of green lifestyle from gardening, upcycling, answering your questions, sustainability, even discussing environmental issues. You can become more confident in making the right decisions for you and your family. So come along as we are Things Green. Okay, I knew I had a bucket of soil someplace around here. Okay, we have in front of us right here a tree that needs to be pruned in order for it to do what it needs to do properly. Right now, it kind of looks like a big old shrub, and it's actually not good because we've got some sucker growth over here, and I'll point it out in a second, that makes it look like a shrub. You see, when we're talking about fruit trees, and we're talking pears, peaches, plums, apricots, pluots, you name it, those trees that go dormant during the winter time, actually they're supposed to go dormant in the fall, into winter, through winter, and sometimes into spring. Our weather here in Southern California is so bizarre because we just never know what's going to happen. I'll give you an example. If I could see it, I don't know if you could see that tree over here or not, but this one right over here, that bloomed and blossomed when it wasn't supposed to. And so we pruned it down. We used it for a news segment that I do. And it had got loaded with blossoms just like this. Just we have little buds that are going on over here. But what happened is that it ended up getting really whacked down and really messed up with the rain and the warm, and it's just really crazy how that works. Okay, don't you just love the sounds of the city here in an urban environment? We got the police, we got the airplanes, and we got the Polar Express is going to be ringing their choo-choo train here pretty soon. Anyway, let's get down to business over here. So we have this Babcock peach, which are beautiful, beautiful stone fruit plants. If you want to make yourselves a peach pie, this is the one to do it with. Now, this particular one happens to be an older plant, but yet it's young at the same time. What has happened is that it got stunted in the container that it was in. When we received this thing, it was a big mess. In fact, kind of looked just like this. Anyway, what we're going to do is we're going to straighten it out. We've got some broken branches. We've got some things that are going on over here that we need to really address, and let's just have at it. But before we do so, we've got to make sure that we have the right tools. Now, what we've done over here is that I'm going to show you 3 different types of tools that we can use on this, and these tools are really important to use. I happen to love these types of pruners right here. These are the dram loppers. I use these more than I do use anything. This particular tool is probably about 10 years old, and you need to take care of these things, and I'm going to show you how we take care of it in a second here. I have a pair of small hand secateurs, and then I have a tree saw here. This is a locking tree saw, and you pull it out like this, and then it's not going to fold in on you, but we do have to keep them clean. So what I end up doing here is that after we give them a little bit of a bath in 10% chlorine, what we'll do is that we'll spray these, and we spray them. We'll spray them with the oil, and the oil, of course, lubricates and juices them all up. And then what I'll do is, got to wear my gloves for this because we don't want to cut ourselves. This is a really important thing because we're working with sharp tools here. All right, what we're going to do is get my gloves on. You're going to see something that's actually kind of interesting. I have a sanding block, and then I also have this little, I don't know what you call this, for scouring pad. That's all it is. It's just a scouring pad. So what we're going to do with this is you could probably, hopefully you could see this dirty that's right on here. If you can't see the dirty, well, sorry. All right, and what we're going to do is we're just going to sand it off like this. That's all we're going to do. It doesn't take much time, and your tools will last for years and years and years. And I like using both of these because you're kind of sharpening all this up at the same time, and that's really important. Then we'll come back and we will wipe them off, and again we'll spray a little bit of chlorine afterwards on this, a little bit of bleach, I should say. Okay, let's identify some parts. Oh, and by the way, to adjust these things, super simple. All you have to do adjust these things is you just take an opened end wrench or a crescent wrench or something. You'll put it on here, and then you twist, and they have a little adjustment over here so the thing doesn't move. You want to make them so that they're tight enough so that it's smooth operation, but we'd also want to make sure that it's smooth enough to cut, but not so hard to open and close. And then sometimes all you need is a little screw like this, a Phillips screwdriver. Screw it in. Pretty simple. Just pretty simple stuff. And then of course wipe everything off as you go along. Okay, let's get to pruning. Okay, this right here is going to be a beginner's guide on how to do this, because what we have to identify normally is that we want to prune back to the second year's growth on the tree. So I can tell that this right here from here to here was last year's growth. Maybe from here to here was last year's growth. We have some newer growth, last year's. So we want to prune up to the second year's growth. But that gets really confusing. So whenever in doubt in pruning anything like this, in fact, I use this rule pretty much for everything. That would be to prune no more than 1/3. If you have no idea what you're doing, you're going to be pretty safe that 1/3 of your pruning is going to be done, should be done. Okay, so we have a couple things happening here. We have this stake. It's not a T-bone. This stake used and did its job back in the day. We don't need it any longer. It's standing up by itself. Now, one of the nice things about working when there's no leaves on it, and again, that's usually in fall, winter, early spring, is that you can see the branches. And when you can see the branches, that's a good thing, because when you have a bunch of leaves on there, you may end up cutting something that's wrong. So the first thing I'm going to do is look at what we got going down at the very bottom over here. And that happens to be, I'm going to put this on the ground because I don't want Mrs. Things Green to yell at me, not that she would, for getting my pants dirty. Okay, so what we have over here is we have two parts of a tree. We have what is called the scion. The scion is the fruiting part of this tree. Then we also have what is called the rootstock. And the rootstock is exactly what it sounds like. It's the root and it's the stock. These are usually two different types of plants. This one is able to support everything what's above. This right here is the fruiting part. You can't always get a plant, you know, if you're to plant this by seed, not going to do any good. It's not going to grow. You're not going to get the fruit because it can't handle it. It can't handle it. So what do we have to do? Anything that is growing on the rootstock, we got to pull out. Now we have a couple of branches here that are pretty marginal that might be on here, but we're going to remove them anyhow because I don't want a bush, I want a tree. So I'm just going to start off by removing branches little by little here, and a good activity to do. Prune away, and hopefully your pruners are large enough. Now you want to try to make the cut as close to the bottom as possible. Now for anything that's larger, make it as close to the trunk as possible. So we're going to take and cut this off. Now if you have to come back and cut again, don't worry about it. Now one of the things we're going to make sure that we do is we'll cut these in little tiny pieces, tinier pieces. We're going to use it for kindling. Peach wood is actually good, is not bad I should say, for barbecues. So you could dry it out for that. And see how this is just starting to open up. And here's a big branch. This is the reason why we use the loppers, because we have much more power behind us to do this. And I would think, and I would imagine you're starting to see me a little bit better. So I can come back and I can make a secondary or even a tertiary, which is a fancy word for 3, kind of a cut. Get these branches out of the way. Yeah, what I would do here is if I'm going to do the barbecue thing, I would cut these down to make little slices like maybe this big. You can even cut it smaller than that. And then you have to let them dry. You gotta dry out upwards up to a year. You can put them inside of a bag. There's actually a whole outdoor kitchen over here with barbecue stuff. So everything is pretty close, cut pretty close over here. I'm happy with all this. Now we don't have any energy that is being taken away from here to develop what we got to develop. Now, because this has only been in the ground over here for a year. Now we have the rest of this to do. It's kind of a mess, there's no doubt about that. I think what I want to do is I want to find branches that are rubbing. I do have some damage that's over here, some tree damage. Looks like somebody had pruned one time and pulled out the bark was all exposed. But I do know it's going to this major branch, so we got to keep that. We do have this one right here. It's all bent and crooked and broken. So just for tickles, and sometimes we got to do this just on principle. We're going to prune away. Now remember, no more than 1/3. Now anywhere where I have these buds, we're going to be having blossoming. So this right here, let me take a look. Okay, so look at the overall shape on what we're going to do. I want more of a roundish kind of a cut on this, kind of a look on it. So this is kind of hard to think. I mean, you look at this. I've got all kinds of buds that are going to be coming out. Those are potential, of course, fruit on there. But if I want the overall appearance on the tree, I'm going to take and I'm going to remove this. So no screaming when I do this, okay? I actually did a pruning seminar one time on roses, and I pruned a major branch like this off. Somebody actually yelped. So we're going to go as close as we can. Now, let me show you something. This is actually kind of cool. You know, when you have a pair of pruners that are like this, these are called scissor pruners, you have one side that has what we're going to call the stable part of it, and we have the cutting part. So you could tell that this side right here, as it scissors through a bypass, it's also called a bypass. When it bypasses through like this, what happens is that this part is actually closer to the actual trunk, and this side over here is, oh, it's like 1/4 of an inch away. So we want to try to get as close as possible. Now, if your tree is healthy, you're not going to need any tree seal. Tree seal, seal, get it? Tree seal is like a mastic material that is not toxic to our plants. And we take that and we use it for creating like a band-aid on here. Now, even though I have a big owie on this side, we're not going to have to seal it, I think, because I already know that this has produced peaches for us. Now, we're going to have to do some strategic planning over here. We have a lot of cross branching that's going on. This right here, albeit it's just a beautiful thing, I may want to remove it. Let's just see what goes on here, okay? So 1/3, these little itty bitty tiny ones I'm going to get rid of, which is interesting because on some fruit trees, if you remove those little itty bitty ones, so this is actually dead. Let me cut this back right here. It's live right there. Okay. Sometimes they have what the things that are called spurs, and those spurs you got to leave on the trees. Okay, we're going to cut all this off, and you can tell what's dead and what's not dead. Come back about 1/3. We're going to take it right above a bud. That's real important. Bring it up above a bud. Now you're going to think, wow, that's a lot. Well, it is a lot of pruning, but in the same instance, it's not, because it's really what the plant wants. Okay. So I'm actually going to remove most of these little spurs here. 1/3 overall. Anything that looks like it's cross branching. Could be rubbing a little too much. We want to remove those. Remember, keep that. And you could always come back and cut more. Usually the biggest problem we have is that people cut too much off. So, got some beautiful things over here. So I go to this one trade show every year, and my buddy Steve, who's been on the program before, he introduced me to this place that makes this peach cobbler pie. They call it, I think it's cowboy style. And what's really cool about it is that they make them in these cast iron pots. And I had been going to this particular trade show for years. I had never known it was there. I ran into him by mistake one time over there, and you know, I'm going to leave this branch, even though it looks like it's rubbing. I'm going to keep a real good eye on it, because I may, at one time, I may end up getting rid of this whole branch. I'm not going to do it today, but I'm going to keep an eye onto it. Make sure, I may put something in between there, like a piece of rubber or something, so that it doesn't. See, when in doubt, you go with, and I'm going above a bud. That's really important. Just going above a bud. 1/3. I got buds all over the place. I can see this. Once you kind of get an eye for this, it's pretty easy. Now, am I ruining the crop for this next year? I'm not ruining it. I'm actually enticing it to do better. It just seems like it's going to be a problem. Am I going to get less? Yeah, because I'm probably cutting off a lot of these things. These branches here, it's good stuff. Yeah, I'm gonna do that. Hey, I'm almost done. This thing has been bothering me for the longest time. Right, we're gonna go like that. We'll leave this. Okay, can you see any place that I missed? All right. Now again, the hardest part is deciding where to cut, why to cut. There's a strategy behind all this. We want things to be open and airy. If it looks like it's dead like this is 100% a dead branch. And you're like, how did that happen? Well, that's just nature pruning itself off. That's all that is. Okay, now what's going to happen, I don't think I'm going to prune much more than this. This is going to come out this way. This will come out this way. Whoopsie, that one was dead. This will fill in. I've got kind of a symmetrical kind of a pruning thing going on here. And then now I have to focus on the bottom here. We're not finished. I have these roots that are out here, and they're I don't know who planted this. This plant is a little wobbly like that. Not wobbly, but it's a little higher on one side than the other. And it probably wasn't buried deep enough, because I do have these roots that are showing up on top here. I'm not going to touch the roots. If the roots were a problem, then I could have taken in and prune them off, but we're not going to do that. This isn't a raised planter bed. It's for decoration. The raised part, you can put this right into the ground. The thing that you really have to remember is that whenever you're doing any kind of planting, you don't want to bury it above and bury this part right here. You want to keep where the graft is. You want to keep that the graft has to be above the ground, but the roots go below. Now, if you're wondering why I was so excited about finding some soil in the greenhouse, is I just wanted to take this soil, bring it over here, and put it around to cover these roots up. That's all we wanted to do here. And this right here is going to put in the moisture. I will take, and I will probably, I don't know, probably I will. I'll put a root quencher in here. I'll put it right here, I think. Put it in, and that's going to bury down. It's going to go down 22 inches so I could fill water up. See, there's no irrigation to these. Maybe one day we'll put some, but it's nice to know that when we do fill it up, we can get that all the way down to 22 inches. And for decoration purposes, I noticed that we had some bark. We can take this bark and put it right on top. Maybe we should open the bag first, huh? That wouldn't be a bad idea. So we got some bark over here. My point in doing all this like this is to show you that it just doesn't take that long to do this kind of work. You're only doing it once a year. Now you're going to have some work to do as far as, you know, come over here and checking it for insects and diseases. If you're fertilizing properly, if you start seeing any of these suckers to coming out again, make sure you just have your pruners with you. Snip them off right away because it's going to take energy away from these plants. The other thing that we're going to also do is we're going to make sure that it gets fed on a regular basis, because a plant that gets fed is not going to be a plant that is going to get sick on you. It just doesn't happen that way. So that's basically, boy, no, it's really not that bad. It's kind of cool here. Okay, see, I missed this one. You know, did you just tinker with it as it go along? And once the fruit starts to develop, you can always just, you know, kick back and enjoy it. Wait till they're ripe when the birds start eating it. But you could actually put a bird netting on top so that they don't come around, or you can put shiny objects in the tree so that they don't like shiny objects, and they'll scooch away, if you may. So that's basically how you do it. So with that being said, green side up. One of the things that I really enjoyed about my garden last year was that I grew hundreds of cucumbers. They were just coming out of my ears. I was growing them on the ground, and I grew them on cages. And right at this particular moment, this is a very young plant. And as a young plant, because of the awkward weather that we've had here in Southern California, a couple things had happened. Number one, this right here kind of bolted out. See how this is just like all leggy looking, if you may? There's nothing wrong with it. It's just giving it the impression that it's old growth. I'm very thankful that this right here is taking over, and that'll be newish type of growth. But there's one thing that we want to do to all of our plants, and it's imperative that we do this when it comes to our vegetables. Harvesting is really important, whether they're in full bloom, blossom, huge plants, or whether they're these smaller plants like this. And because it's going to encourage more blooming, more blossoming, and more fruiting of the plant, or in this case, the vegetable. So here we have this right here, and look at I've got 1, 2, 3, we've got several more of these flowers, and they've been sitting here kind of dormant for the longest time. So what we want to do is, in order to preserve this as long as possible, you always want to get a little bit of the stem. So we're going to reach down way in here, we're going to clip this off, and look how beautiful this is. This is just absolutely an amazing cucumber. It's perfect. It probably should have been picked last week, but I didn't have a camera here to do this at the time. Now the energy is going to be focusing into here. I have another, see this little itty baby one right here? Look at this. Oh, that's so cute. This is so cute. It's going to turn into another cucumber. And then I can take this thing and use it cut it up, use it in a salad, pickle it, or just eat it just like this, right out. It doesn't get any better. If I was able to bend over and eat it right on the vine, it's the freshest thing ever. And that's the way that we harvest our cucumbers and our vegetables. Okay, don't squish your squash, that's for sure. Look at this plant, it's absolutely beautiful. This actually doubled in 1 week. Planted by seed. I planted a whole bunch of different kind of squash, and this one right here is starting just to jet out like crazy. Now there's a couple of things you have to remember about squash. There's male flowers and there's female flowers, and regardless of what they are, you can actually eat the flowers. So if we come down here and take a look at this is already growing, so it doesn't have to be pollinated any longer. So what you could do is you could take these off like this, just like that. See how they came off? And then this right here is edible. A lot of people, what they'll do is that they'll take it and they'll dip it in some egg and some panko what's that panko stuff called? I already forget. But it's the breadcrumbs, and then you fry them. Or you can take them and just eat them just like this. It's just perfect. So don't squish your squash. Thanks for joining me on another excursion of Things Green. Our goal is to educate, inform, and entertain so you can become exposed to a green lifestyle inside and outside of the home and community, all on your terms. Join me next time right here as we help you with Things Green.